Alsace, 1660 AD, early Middle Ages. Imagine a winter night, one of those nights when the wind whistles through the cracks in the windows, chilling you to the bone. Snow blankets the fields of Alsace, a region in Central Europe known for its towering mountains and deep valleys nourished by the famous Rhine River. It's the 7th century, a time when life was harsh, days were fraught with uncertainty, and the nights were silent, except for the hoot of an owl or the distant howl of a wolf. This was not a time of peace. Kingdoms were fractured. Wars and conflicts were far more common than celebrations. It was in this cold, unforgiving landscape that the story of Saint Odilia began. A tale of rejection, faith, miracles, and a destiny no one could have foreseen. During that era, Alsace was ruled by powerful dukes, among them Alderic, the father of Odilia. He was a typical man of his time, strong, proud, and a ruler with an iron will. To him, honor and the continuation of his lineage meant everything. But fate often writes its own script, doesn't it? When his wife, Bereswinda, gave birth to a blind baby girl, Alderic felt as though the sky had fallen on him. He had expected an heir, a son to carry on his name, command his lands, and lead his soldiers. Instead, Odilia was born, and to Alderic she was a mark of weakness, almost an affront to his pride. Can you imagine his frustration? It wasn't just that she was a girl. In those days, women's roles were largely confined to family obligations. Her blindness, to Alderic, was like a divine stamp declaring he had failed. So, in a decision tinged with rejection, but perhaps also a faint glimmer of hope, he decreed that Odilia had no place in the castle. On a frigid night, with the wind howling and the moon lighting the snow-covered ground, the newborn was hurriedly taken to a monastery. Now take a moment to think. What kind of strength must a child possess to grow up knowing they were rejected by their own father? Odilia was welcomed by the nuns of that monastery, a modest place with cold stone walls and an almost sacred stillness. Life there was devoted to prayer and labor. There was no luxury, but there was something far more precious: love. The nuns, with hearts full of faith, cared for Odilia as one of their own. They taught her to navigate a world where sight was unnecessary, to feel the warmth of the sun on her face, to listen to the melody of the wind through the trees, and to sense God's presence in everything. Even so, Odilia carried something within her that set her apart. Though her eyes could not see, there was a light inside her. She was curious, full of questions, and her kindness seemed to overflow from her soul. But life is never simple, is it? As she grew in the monastery, the nuns felt certain that something extraordinary awaited her, even if they couldn't explain it. Then one day, the story took a breathtaking turn. Years had passed, and Odilia had grown into a young woman with a serene spirit and a faith strong enough to move mountains. That's when a bishop named Geraldo appeared at the monastery. He was renowned for his wisdom and unwavering faith, but there was something else. He had experienced a dream. In his vision, an angel told him he must go to that monastery and baptize a special girl. At first, he dismissed it as just another dream, the kind that fades upon waking. But the vision was so vivid, he couldn't ignore it. Bishop Geraldo arrived at the monastery on a cold, overcast morning, his expression serious. He asked to see Odilia. When he met her, he felt something he couldn't explain, as if he were standing in the presence of something divine. Carefully, he made all the arrangements for the baptism, and that's when the impossible happened. Picture the scene. The chapel was lit by flickering candles. The scent of incense filled the air, and the silence was so profound it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. When Bishop Geraldo poured the water over Odilia's head and pronounced her name, a miracle occurred. For the first time, she opened her eyes. Yes, she could see. The room was overcome with emotion. The nuns wept, Bishop Geraldo was speechless, and Odilia, she saw the world for the very first time. And what did she see? The light. Not just physical light, but something greater, something spiritual. It was as if God himself was saying, "This is my daughter, and in her I place my light." From that moment on, Odilia's life changed completely. Word of the miracle spread quickly, like wildfire through dry grass. It reached Alderic, who, torn between disbelief and curiosity, decided to bring her back to the castle. But reconciliation wasn't as simple as it might seem. Alderic was still a proud man, and accepting that he had rejected someone so extraordinary was a bitter pill to swallow. Moreover, he struggled to come to terms with the fact that Odilia was unlike anything he had ever expected. But Odilia was no ordinary person. Instead of holding on to resentment, she forgave her father. Gradually, she began to win his heart. Her younger brother, Hugo, played a crucial role in this process. He admired his sister deeply and did everything he could to help bridge the gap between her and their father. Still, their relationship was fraught with challenges. Like many fathers of the time, Alderic believed the best future for his daughter lay in a strategic marriage. He began planning an alliance with a noble family, choosing a suitor for Odilia. But she had other plans. Ever since the miracle of her baptism, Odilia had felt a deeper calling, something pulling her away from the conventions of the time. Marriage was not part of God's plan for her. When Alderic discovered that she didn't want to marry, tensions in the castle rose. It was a quiet conflict, but one filled with intense emotions. Odilia knew she had to make a difficult decision. On a starry night, with her heart racing, she fled the castle. She returned to the monastery where it had. From that point on, Odilia's story only grew. After reflecting on his daughter's choices, Alderic finally accepted that she had a divine purpose. As an act of redemption, he gave her the castle of Hohenburg, where Odilia founded a monastery that became a beacon of hope for all those who suffered. Miracles continued to mark her life. During a devastating drought, she prayed relentlessly, and a miraculous spring emerged, saving the community. That spring still exists today and attracts pilgrims from around the world. Odilia lived a life of service, caring for the poor, the sick, and the marginalized. In the end, she completely forgave her father and cared for him during his final days. When she passed away, she was buried next to the miraculous spring, and her tomb became a pilgrimage site. There are fascinating details about Saint Odilia that make her story even more special and inspiring. One of the most well-known stories is about Sainte-Odile, where she founded her monastery. Legend has it that while climbing the mountain to find a suitable location for her community, Odilia prayed to God for a sign. Suddenly, a spring of crystal-clear water burst from the ground. This spring, known as the Spring of Saint Odilia, still exists today and is considered miraculous, making it one of the most visited sites for pilgrims. Saint Odilia is the patron saint of the blind and visually impaired, due to the miracle of her restored sight during her baptism. Many believers with vision problems seek her intercession, and there are numerous accounts of blessings attributed to her. Another intriguing detail is that the monastery on Sainte-Odile was built in a strategic location at the top of a mountain surrounded by an ancient stone wall known as the Mur Païen, pagan wall. This mysterious wall predates the monastery by centuries and was likely used to protect the site. Its origins are unknown, but it's believed to have been built by Celtic peoples long before Christianity arrived in the region. Her canonization was unusual. Saint Odilia was recognized as a saint through popular acclamation, a common practice before the Church formalized the canonization process as we know it today. Her devotion was so widespread and intense that her veneration was universally accepted, without the need for an official decree at the time. Finally, there is a local tradition that says, on the calmest nights at Mont Sainte-Odile, one can feel the saint's presence, especially during moments of deep prayer. For her devotees, it feels as though she still watches over those who visit the monastery, seeking solace and faith. The story of Saint Odilia is a powerful invitation to reflect on how the light of faith can illuminate even the darkest moments of our lives. It's impossible not to be moved by the journey of someone who faced rejection, adversity, and suffering, yet chose the path of forgiveness. Odilia was born in a time when her condition was seen as a burden, a mark of weakness. To be blind and a woman in the 7th century meant, to many, having no value. And yet, God had other plans for her, plans that defied human expectations. It makes me think about how often we feel inadequate, rejected, or small in the face of life's challenges. Saint Odilia's life shows us that our limitations, no matter how overwhelming they may seem, are never greater than God's love and plans. For us, what moves me most about her story is her ability to forgive. Think about it. She was rejected by her own father, sent away from her home and deemed a burden. Yet when given the chance, she didn't hold on to bitterness. On the contrary, she transformed her father's heart and brought him closer to God. It makes me wonder, how often do we let hurt and resentment keep us from what truly matters? How often do we avoid forgiving because it feels too hard? Odilia teaches us that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength. It's an act of love that sets both the forgiver and the forgiven free. Another striking part of her story is the miracle of her healing. It wasn't just about regaining physical sight, it was about seeing her life's purpose through the eyes of the soul. Sometimes we're so focused on what we lack that we fail to notice the blessings we already have or the ones about to come. When Odilia was baptized and saw the world for the first time, she didn't just open her eyes, she opened her heart to the mission God had entrusted to her. It makes me think, are we willing to open our eyes to what God wants from us? Or are we still trapped in a limited vision, unable to see beyond our struggles? Finally, Saint Odilia's legacy reminds us that each of us can be a light in the world. It doesn't matter where we come from, what our limitations are, or what others think of us. What matters is how we choose to live, love, and serve. She turned a place of rejection into a place of refuge, founding a monastery that became a beacon of hope for so many. And us? What kind of legacy are we leaving? Are we spreading light, or are we hiding in the shadows of our insecurities? Saint Odilia invites us to be brave, to trust in God, and to remember that even in the darkest nights, there is always a light ready to guide us. If she, with all the challenges she faced, could light up the world around her, why can't we? Maybe the secret is to do as she did. Let God's light shine in us and through us. After all, even the smallest candle can drive away the greatest darkness. Prayer to Saint Odilia. Saint Odilia, example of faith and perseverance, intercede for us so that we may overcome our struggles with courage and hope. May your light inspire us to be instruments of love and compassion in the world. Amen. Saint Odilia's story reminds us that even in the face of the greatest adversities, faith can turn darkness into light. Rejected, limited, and doubted, she refused to give up. Instead, she followed God's call, forgave, healed, and became a symbol of hope. Her life is an invitation to reflect. What blindness do we need to overcome to see the purpose God has for us? If this story of faith and perseverance warmed your heart, subscribe to Journey of Saints, Sacred Stories, give it a like, and share it with someone who could use this inspiration today. And before you go, let us know in the comments, how do you think you can be a light in the lives of those around you? Lastly, don't forget to watch one of the videos above, chosen especially for you. May the life of Saint Odilia continue to inspire our journey.